Hello and welcome to the channel. After the presidential election, when Peter Obi conducted himself very well, especially in his home base, the Southeast and of course the South-South, a narrative purportedly started by the opposition People's Democratic Party (PDP) that Obi took votes that otherwise would have gone to the PDP. Some even went as far as to say that had those votes gone Atiku's way, he would have emerged president. After all, if it were true, couldn't the same logic have applied to previous elections and had long since made Atiku president of Nigeria? This is just the perfect example of tearing a man down or knocking one's achievements. Subscribe, like, share, and comment. Thank you. Deconstructing the Obi phenomenon. Did Obi's candidacy take votes that would have gone to the PDP? The answer to this is not as straightforward as some have made it out to be. In fact, argument that Obi took votes that should have gone to the PDP marks of an entitlement mentality. When the PDP failed to microzone its presidential tickets to the Southeast, there was a strong feeling among the generality of the Igbos that the party took their support for granted. Based on this feeling of being disrespected, one could have argued shortly after the PDP's presidential primary in May 2022 that the party would be unlikely to get up to 25% of the votes cast in the zone during the presidential election. In this sense, Obi's candidacy through the Labour Party provided a ready alternative to a perceived PDP treasury and perhaps increased the eagerness to punish the party for taking them for granted. The resentment in many parts of the South at the prospect of power remaining in the North after 8 years of a Buhari presidency also hurts the chances of the PDP in many parts of the South. Additionally, the obsession by Reno Omokri, a former aide to President Jonathan, in insulting and demarketing Peter Obi, a cult hero in the region, did not help matters. It is akin to someone who is canvassing for Yoruba votes, constantly insulting the late Chief Obafemi Awolowo and expecting to win over the Yoruba people with such antics. That Atiku failed to see that Reno Omokri's reprehensible and irresponsible behavior was hurting his candidature in the region, even when he repeatedly and maliciously indulged in ethnic baiting, sometimes translating text to Hausa to pitch the North against the Igbo, is unfortunate. By not calling Reno Omokri to order, Atiku gave the impression that he tacitly approved of Mr. Omokri's bad behavior. Based on this, some people have argued that rather than blaming Peter Obi for PDP's woeful performance in the Southeast and elsewhere at the presidential level, the blame should be on the PDP for taking some of the votes Peter Obi should have probably secured if he was not on the ballot. The Obi phenomenon is likely to face an existentialist challenge after the elections. This is because it is built on the charisma of Peter Obi. Typically, charismatic movements have problems of institutionalization and routinization. They are also prone to fractionalization once the charismatic leader is demystified or is no longer part of the movement. The challenge, therefore, for the Obi phenomenon is how to properly integrate and formalize its various components into a formal political structure and how to reconcile the various contradictions existing within the component parts. Take, for instance, the obedient movement, the heart and soul of the Obi phenomenon. The movement is a loose amalgam of higher-end intellectuals, ordinary professionals, urban and internet-savvy youths, EndSARS activists and their sympathizers, frustrated young people itching for a revolution or class warfare, and rascals itching for a fight on a whim. How do you reconcile all these tendencies to institutionalize the movement into a political force that goes beyond the goal of winning the presidency? There is a similar challenge with the Labour Party, whose ideological orientation of neo-welfarism or state-driven benevolent capitalism would need to be harmonized with Peter Obi's free market philosophy. We already saw how some of the contradictions within the Peter Obi phenomenon came to the fore when some prominent members of the movement like Aisha Yesufu disagreed with Peter Obi over whom to support in the Enugu state governorship race. Charismatic and messianic movements often overpromise but underdeliver. This is largely because the expectations on the leader are so high that it will be humanly impossible to meet most of them. The leader is often deified and imbued with superhuman abilities by the cult followers. This means in essence that Obi presidency, if it materializes, is likely to struggle to meet expectations like most charismatic and messianic movements. However, if the Obi phenomenon is able to resolve most of the contradictions outlined above, there is a good chance that it could transform into a major force in Nigeria politics, either as a reinvented Labour Party or an entirely new political party. How would an Obi presidency differ from a possible Tinubu or Atiku presidency? Surprisingly, the three leading candidates, Tinubu, Atiku and Obi, have more in common than what separates them. They are all billionaires and free marketers. The three are also relatively cosmopolitan and married outside their ethnic homelands, Obi to an Akwa Ibom woman, Tinubu to an Itsekiri woman, and Atiku's wives include Yoruba and until recently also an Igbo. They are equally veterans in the use of judicial processes to prosecute their political battles. The main difference between the three can be located in their character, style, and carriage. Irrespective of what happens with the Obi phenomenon after the elections, there is no doubt that Peter Obi's audacious presidential candidacy has immeasurably impacted on the character and trajectory of our national politics and is likely to be a focus of study for social scientists in years to come. Meanwhile, the Labour Party's presidential candidate, Mr. Peter Obi, has formally filed a petition at the Presidential Election Tribunal in Abuja. According to a tweet by Yunusa Tanko, the chief spokesperson of the Labour Party Presidential Campaign Council (LP/PCC), by filing the petition, the process of reclaiming the people's mandate has started. But Tanko provided no further details of the lawsuits now brought before the tribunal, which is holding at the headquarters of the Court of Appeal, Three Arms Zone, Abuja. Chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC), Professor Mahmood Yakubu, had declared Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, the candidate of the ruling All Progressives Congress (APC), as the winner of the presidential election. That's the news, guys. Thanks for listening. Until next time, bye.